welcome to episode number 29 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. I'm Santacroce and thrilled that you're spending this time with me today. Usually I talk to guests on this podcast, but as you know, if you're a regular listener, but today it's just me. Every fourth or so episode, I don't have a guest and I just talk to myself basically and kind of ponder on some topics that I think are important for introverts or that I see, kind of being trendy in Facebook posts or things like that. So today I want to talk about this topic of extroverts versus introverts and the question that I think is kind of going around, which is, are extroverts happier than introverts? So I've seen this pop up in different places, and research apparently shows that extroverts are happier than introverts. Another thing that I've seen several times over the past few weeks is the topic of loneliness. So I've heard this on my friend Kat Rose's podcast. I've also just heard it on a podcast where the topic was kind of men in their 40s are very lonely. Can't remember exactly the name of the podcast, but it was a very good episode as well. Nothing to do with introverts in this particular episode, but just kind of this loneliness, finding our people, and are extroverts really happier than introverts? That's what I wanted to talk about today. And maybe you've already noticed it. This episode is kind of different from other episodes because I have no script. I'm just really just staring at my microphone and talking to myself. And I wanted to do that because the podcast kind of started to feel too scripted to me. I had this there's always the same intro, always the same outro. And yes, of course, it's much easier for an introvert because, I feel very prepared and it just makes it very easy. It's less scary. But as I'm listening to all these other podcasts, I started to realize, well, I'd be very bored if it was always the same. So that's what I'm trying to do here is kind of just unplugged, unscripted. So there'll be a lot of more ums and I'll probably get stuck in, the middle of the conversation. Remember that English is not my mother tongue either. I'm originally, Swiss, German. So that's just me unplugged. Okay. So talking about this topic of extroverts being happier than introverts, I really had to think about it and I came to the conclusion that it's probably true that extroverts are actually happier than introverts. My husband is also an introvert, and we discussed this at home. And we did realize that life sometimes seems much easier if you're an extrovert. I don't think you ask yourself that many questions, and you're not as picky as an extrovert. You just want people. You just want the community. You just want to be able to exchange with friends. And as introverts, first of all, we're so, kind of content being by ourselves. That makes us much more picky in terms of, who do we pick to actually spend time with? Who do we hang out with? I see this with my kids as well, because both my boys are introverts as well. And they are spending a lot of time by themselves at home. And as a mom, that sometimes kind of hurts me. I'm like, well, why don't they have more friends? And then my husband and I look at each other and go, well, look at us. We have a very few really good friends that we love to spend time with, but it's not like we have plans every weekend because we're just very picky people. We are, when we go out, we want to have deep conversations, not just small talk and talk about money and this and that, job promotion and stuff like that. So our kids are learning from us. And so I every now and then I have to remind myself that, well, they're probably just happy being by themselves, just like we are happy being by ourselves. But that's funny because I just said we're happy being by ourselves. But the question is, are we really? So Are extroverts happier because they have their community, because they have a lot of friends? And I guess, yeah, it is true, because sometimes I do feel like I don't have the right people to hang out with. But being so picky, I don't just want to give in and hang out with anybody. So it's a real dilemma. And I'm sure that quite a few introverts can relate. We are too much in our heads. We are too much always questioning everything. We are too much, thinking about the future, too much also, maybe comparing or I don't know what it is. It's a combination of all of these things that really probably shows that it's true that extroverts are generally happier because they just go with the flow, and they just, celebrate the moment. They don't ask themselves too many questions. They don't mind whether the person they hang out with doesn't have exactly the same values as they have, because they're probably, more concerned about their own values that they want to share. And as introverts, as we're listeners, well, we have to, always listen to the other people. And then we think, well, I don't agree with that, so why would I want to hang out with this person? So anyways, the conclusion that I came to is that it is probably true that extroverts are happier than introverts. And the other conclusion I came to is that it's worth making the effort in finding your people. So this past year, I started really kind of paying attention to that and started new activities. I started a Tai Chi class where, I meet once per week. There are 4 ladies that come there. I can't say that they became my friends, but I can see that I like the interaction and I like the community feeling. The other thing I noticed is when I went to this retreat in Tuscany recently, well, there was extroverts and introverts, both, but definitely at least half of these people, they were my kind of people. We had a lot of things in common. And so that really kind of underlined this need for finding our people. And I think as introverts, that's especially important to remind ourselves that never stop trying to find your people, because otherwise it can get actually very lonely. And yes, social media is okay, and you can probably find your people online, but what you really need is interaction with real people. And so you just need to go find them probably a bit harder than extroverts do, because they just show up anywhere and have friends anywhere. And we really have to kind of invest a bit more time in kind of building these long-term relationships. And so that's what I like to encourage you to keep doing and keep, pushing yourself and saying, okay, let me try something new. Let me attend, this meetup, because I think I can find my kind of people there. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you didn't mind all my ums and stumbling and all of that. But yeah, I hope you found that useful. So if you're listening to other podcasts, you probably know that a lot of them have these sponsors. And so there's always these kind of commercial breaks where the podcast host promotes this or the other thing. And a lot of times I kind of smile to myself and think, really? Is he really using that kind of underwear every day? Or is he just, saying that because he needs to kind of monetize his podcast? Or is he really using that special mattress? I think it's called a Casper mattress. And is it really that great? And I don't know if that's an introvert thing, but I always kind of go, I don't know if I could actually do this unless I'm really using the stuff that I'm promoting, right? So for now, I'm not planning to kind of promote things that feel like they're just not a great fit. Sometimes I really wonder, why is he promoting underwear? That just doesn't make sense on that kind of podcast. Anyways, I do have to be very upfront and honest with you that yes, it is my long-term plan to kind of hopefully monetize this podcast in one way or the other, because it does cost money. I have to pay my dear podcast editor Tim, who does an amazing job, but he needs to make a living as well, so I need to pay his bill. It takes a lot of time, which we all know time is money. And so I started to think about how I can monetize this show without selling my soul and selling underwear that I'm not wearing, or without sounding too pushy or too kind of salesy. And so what I decided for now is that I'm kind of sponsoring my own shows with the retreat that I've talked to you about a couple of times. So I'm kind of bringing in these commercial bits here and there where I just kind of tell you about this retreat in Sicily. And so I hope that's okay with you. It's not an underwear or a Tupperware retreat. It's a retreat for introverts that I'm hosting in May 2018, and it takes place in Sicily. And it's going to be a very intimate group, not more than 8 or 10 people. And it's going to be a workation, but we're going to have a lot of time to also spend just exploring the area, have deep conversations, walks at the beach, and discover the great culture of Sicily. And of course, a lot of masterminds too. In the morning, we always will spend time masterminding, learning from each other, sharing experiences and all of that. So if you feel like this kind of sounds like you're kind of saying, well, the sales page is almost ready, meaning it is up, and you can go check it out at sarasantacroce.com/retreat. The only thing that doesn't work yet is the registration form. So if you feel like I gotta save my spot immediately, just send me an email and I will make sure to save your spot. But otherwise, it's just there for information right now. And if you do have questions, of course, get back to me. But so I just wanted to put that out there, and I will mention it every now and then on this podcast to just kind of sponsor my own show. And I will also be running a couple of webinars in the second half of the year that have to do with anything related to online business and introverts. So I'll bring in some guest speakers who will share their specific expertise with you. And most of them are also introverts, or at least they can relate to introverts. So it'd be great to have you join those webinars. In order to get the invitations, it'd be really great if you were on my list. So the best way to get on my list is to get my freebie, How to Say No to Grow. So that's at sarasantacroce.com/say no. So make sure you get on the list so I can send you these invitations to the webinars. And that's it for this episode today. I hope you enjoyed my kind of less scripted version. And if not, please let me know and I will change it again. But it feels much more natural to me. And as you know, as introverts, we kind of have to grow into this. And I hope you don't mind growing with me. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.